Hey guys, welcome back to Paige in the Chapter, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Paige and today we are doing a little mid-year check-in. It is slightly later than mid-year, but we're still going to do this little check-in anyway. It's going to be kind of like goals for the end of the year, little check-in on how I'm finding the year going, like what am I really wanting to do in the last half of this year, and then we can kind of come back and revisit this at the end of the year and see the progress that I made. I kind of wish that I had done this all along as well, so we could have like really checked in about 2024 was going. But I do have some things to say and I am really excited to kind of start documenting how I would like want things to go, how I'm feeling about things, and just being a little bit more upfront about my reading and what I'm looking for in the rest of the year. So if you guys like the sound of this video and you would like to see more from me, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. I upload every single Wednesday and every single Sunday, so there is no shortage of bookish content here for you to enjoy. Also do feel free to check me out on Bookstagram at apaigeinchapter for pictures of pretty books and more updates in real time on what I'm reading. You'll be able to see in real time how these goals are going, and it could be just as fun over there, so feel free to check that out. And without further ado, let's get on into my little mid-year check-in. So let's start with my reading goal for the year and how that is getting on. So my goal for this year on Goodreads is to read 100 books, and I am 74 books into that, so I'm 74% of the way through my reading goal as of the end of July, and I am 19 books ahead of schedule. Now when I set this goal, I set 100 thinking 100 would be kind of the challenge for me and what we were aiming for, but secretly I was really hoping to kind of get to like the 110 book mark. I would like to increase the speed of my reading. I wanted to see if I could do it without hitting any major slumps. I wanted to kind of see how much I could genuinely read in a year, and I just kind of really wanted like my best reading year ever, and 110 just kind of was this number that I had in my mind of what I wanted to get to. So I haven't updated this on my Goodreads. I'm umming and ahhing about whether I should, but I am still very much aiming for 110 books at the end of the year, and honestly kind of hoping that we go over it a little bit, because I just think I can. Like, this is really turning out to be the best reading year that I've ever had, in the sense of I don't think I've ever been consistently at like 19 books ahead of schedule, especially not after doing a single 24-hour reading challenge this year. Normally I would get really ahead by doing 24-hour reading challenges, and that's kind of how I saved my Goodreads goal the only year that I've ever hit 100. I feel like my relationship with reading is a lot better this year, and I have to say that mood reading is the reason for that. Setting TBRs just hasn't really worked for me in the past, so even though there will still be TBRs, I am mostly a mood reader, and I think allowing myself that space to mood read has really been the reason that I've hit so many books. Also a lot of just changes in my life as well, like I'm working full-time now, I'm not a student, which means I obviously have set working hours and I'm not expected to like write essays or be stressing about upcoming things or readings that I have or tutorials that I have outside of work, which means more time for reading. And my schedule has changed drastically because I live with my fiance now and not my parents, so I have just a lot of time that I can put into reading that I didn't necessarily have before. So my goal for the end of the year is 110 books, if not more than that. I think it's doable, but I would also like to stress that the number of books you read in a year doesn't matter. Like, I am doing this just purely because I really want to challenge myself, and it's so easy for me at the moment to read this much. It doesn't feel like I am forcing myself to get slumpy in order to read this much, which is why I kind of want to challenge myself and want to really see what kind of number I can hit. But the number at the end of the year is so arbitrary and just does not matter, so please don't stress yourself out over it. But just like in the interest of updating you on my goals, I am like kind of hoping to get to like the 110 book mark and see kind of what happens. And I don't even know what we're gonna do next year, but that can be an end of the year wrap up, check in kind of thing. And then like kind of following on from that, what I would really like for the end of the year is to just mood read a little bit more. A lot of my mood reading has been the result of not being on BookTube and taking a little break, and where I have been here I've been setting myself like very small TBRs and then kind of still not sticking to them and mood reading anyway. And I think going into the end of the year, just to help keep up my pace and also keep up my enjoyment, because I don't think I've ever read this much and enjoyed it as much as I have been this year. So I would very much like to stick with the mood reading and trying to figure out how I can fit that into TBRs and those types of videos, because I really love watching that type of content and I really enjoy filming that type of content as well. And I do think it's really fun to have a log of these things, and so I just really want to find a way to incorporate TBRs and mood reading at the same time. I think it's probably going to be a case of giving myself options, or really sitting myself down and making sure that I am aware that the TBRs I set, it doesn't matter if I don't complete them. I think I really feel a sense of pressure as soon as I've set a TBR to get myself through it. And that has also been seen a little bit with the Magical Hopathon readathon, which I am taking part in right now. I said that I would let myself deviate and mood read and change prompts around and books around for prompts depending on my mood, and I haven't done that. I have been so strict with myself about sticking to the TBR that I set. So I think that's something that I really need to work on towards the end of the year, so that I have that room to mood read, even though I am like a book reviewer, content creator, whatever you want to call it. And it is definitely something that I want to work on, because I think mood reading has really what's made this fun for me. And in 2020, when I hit 100, yes, that involved 24-hour challenges and whatnot, but I didn't have my channel for the first 6 months of 2020, and I was just in lockdown mood reading and getting myself back into reading again. And I think that like all of this is just coming to the conclusion that I need to mood read more to read high levels of books and have the most enjoyment out of reading, so that I want to keep picking up books and reading as much as I am. And then like my final goal for the end of the year is to read more books than I buy / collect. This is like physical books specifically. I do want to work on my physical TBR. For a while I was getting really good at staying on top of my physical TBR. When I moved into this house, my TBR was actually quite small, my physical one, and it has grown exponentially. These bookcases had a lot of empty space. I will leave a link to the bookshelf organization video I posted, and you'll see how much space these shelves had that are now full. I think where I've been mood reading a lot, I've been gravitating a lot towards KU romances, and I've just gotten really behind on my physical TBR. So I do want to try and get a handle on how many books that I get. It's not practical for me to be on a book buying ban. Like it's just not really something that I could do, but I can make more of an effort to read from my physical TBR. I'm sure that I have physical books that would fit my moods, and this is something that I want to try to get a handle on and try to kind of fix. I'll give you a little sneak peek into like what I'm doing to fix this. Is going to be a sneak peek into my July wrap-up video, but you can kind of see where I am starting to track the amount of physical books that I read in a month, the genre, and then I'm also tracking any book that I get in a month, either from subscription or that I buy, and I am keeping track of where that's coming from. I kind of just want to make sure that I'm keeping these as even as possible, and then obviously it will be even easier next year when we have a full year to do this and kind of compare. And yeah, at the end of the year, hopefully we'll see a marked increase in the books that I read from my physical TBR compared to the books that I have coming in. And then there are also some books that I'm really wanting to get to for the end of this year, so I'm going to give a little end of the year TBR for you all. These are books that I really need to get to in the next 6 months, and I think it'll be fun to come back and see if I've gotten to them. Also important to note, all of these are from my physical TBR, so this goes hand in hand with my last goal, and this will be a really important way to check in with myself and see if I'm actually sticking on track with my goals. So the first book on this list is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. I have put this on many a TBR and still not gotten to it. I've read the first 2 books in this series, and the way the second book ended, you would think would have me grasping for this immediately, and it should have done. I was absolutely shocked by the ending of book 2 and was so excited to get to book 3, and then for some reason I just didn't do it. I really need to get to this because not only do I want to know what happens, and this book is on my physical TBR, but it also means wrapping up a series, which is so rare for me to do, and I find very difficult to actually stick to the series that I start. And if I can actually wrap this one up, it's just another series like checked off and done. I'm not technically tracking the series I'm in the middle of because I do DNF series a little bit too often for me to realistically keep track of that. But the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber is one that I started at the beginning of this year, and it's just one that I do really want to finish. This is a YA fairy tale-esque series. We follow our main character Evangeline, and spurred by a broken heart, Evangeline goes to this fate of broken hearts, or fate of love, or something along those lines. The fates are essentially godlike beings in this world, and they each rule over something specific. And Evangeline goes to this fate and she begs him to call off the wedding, and in return she has to promise him 3 kisses, and he gets to choose who these kisses are for, the effect that they have on people, and it leads Evangeline on this kind of fairy tale adventure. It's honestly just a really fun YA series. I really enjoy Jax. He is my favourite character in this whole series, and I really want to see how his tale wraps up. And I thought that the first book was a little bit superficial, but I did feel my heart like twinging a little in the second book. So I do really want to finish this, and I'm excited for it. The next book on my end of year TBR is one that I'm seeing so much hype around, and this one does involve starting a new series, but it is the first book that's only just come out. I believe the sequels aren't out yet, and every other book on this end of year TBR is a sequel, so I'm allowing myself this one option of book that I like really feel like I need to get to this year. And that is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I'm seeing so much hype surrounding this, but I'm also seeing a lot of people really unsure if they like it, if it's good. I've seen a lot of criticisms that this book is just too long and it doesn't really feel like it gets good until way too late in the book. If you've read this and you have opinions, please let me know before I go in. But I just really want to be able to form my own opinion on this. I really want to read it. I believe this is a romantasy series, and romantasy is a genre that I've been really hoping to get more into. I've really put some effort into reading more romantasy pics lately, and I just really want to make sure that I am keeping up to date with latest big releases and forming my own opinions on them. So in this book we follow a main character who is an assassin, and when a fellow bounty hunter gets involved, she ends up being captured by the Fae, and then is kind of swept into this world where I think there's dragon riders, and obviously because this has dragons in it, this has been linked to Fourth Wing quite a lot, and I am just very intrigued because I feel like even when people are complaining that this is too long, it just makes me that much more intrigued and wanting to read it, because I do kind of feel like I just want to be in a world for a long period of time. And I don't know if just sticking with this one is going to pay off, and I'm just very intrigued by both the praise and the criticisms that I've seen for this book. Next on my list is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is Emily Wilde book 2. This has been on my end of the year TBR for quite a while now because I picked up the sequel in January. Not this version, but just the standard UK hardback. This is my Fairy Loot edition. Yes, I have 2 editions of this book, and yes, I picked this one up in January when it came out, even though I knew I wouldn't be reading it in January. But basically I loved Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, book 1 in this series. I found it to be the most cozy, wholesome, atmospheric read ever, and I loved it. I own multiple copies. I saw Heather Fawcett, the author, talking about how this book was very autumnal to her, and ever since I have been saving this particularly for my October TBR. This one will 100% get read because I am so eagerly anticipating this sequel. If you haven't heard of this series, then Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies documents our main character Emily Wilde, and she is an academic and she is trying to put together a complete encyclopedia of fairies, and she is traveling around different lands in order to investigate the fairy folk that live there and catalogue them for her encyclopedia, and is also communing with local villagers and finding out tales and information about the fae to go into her encyclopedia. It feels very, very academic and kind of anthropological in nature. The book has all of these lovely little footnotes that tell you little extra things about the fairies and really makes you feel like you're kind of reading Emily's encyclopedia yourself, but it's just the most cozy and wonderful tale, and it's like a very slow burn, rivals to lovers in this story, and I'm just obsessed with it, and I can't wait to go into this next book and find out what happens next. I am so excited. And then the final book on my end of the year TBR is A Queen This Fierce and Deadly by Stasia Stark. This is the 4th book in the Kingdom of Lies series. I have read the first 3. I was so good and I binge read the first 3, and it was only when I got to the end of the 3rd one that I realised it wasn't a trilogy and there was in fact a 4th book, and then I had to go and track down a copy of this one, and in the process fell out of that mood and haven't picked up this book in a while. But I really want to get back into this. I want to be either more up to date with this series or finish out this series. But again, as I've already mentioned, I've been really trying to get more up to date with romantasy picks lately. I found that in my mood reads, romantasy is coming up a lot. I find it a really fun way to explore tropes that don't necessarily work in contemporary romance, and it's bringing a lot more like joy and fun to my life. So this series follows a magical world where as soon as children are born, the gods take like their power from them, and then when they reach a certain age they go through this ceremony where a little bit of their magic is given back to them, except it is seen as like a great sin and a real insult to the gods if this magic isn't taken at birth. And so when adults go for this kind of ceremony, this rite on their 25th birthday I want to say, if they're found to still be harbouring power, then they are killed immediately and all of their family is assassinated as well. And of course we follow our main character in this series as she is trying to get away with the fact that she has had power all along and that her power wasn't taken from her as a baby successfully, and she is trying very hard to save people that are close to her and escape detection, and in the process she ends up meeting this kind of rugged band of mercenaries in the forest, and they train her and they end up forming a deal where they protect each other, and this leads to a great adventure for our main character. This is honestly a really addictive read. It reminds me a little bit of From Blood and Ash series, but I haven't gotten bored of this series the way I got bored of From Blood and Ash. It feels a little bit like the plotting and the pace is a little bit faster in this series, and I'm really enjoying it. If you are looking for a place to start with romantasy that's not From Blood and Ash or ACOTAR, I think this has a lot of really classic elements and structures of romantasy and would also be a great place to start. So I am absolutely loving this series and cannot wait to finish it off with this book. So those are the books that I really want to get to at the end of this year, and kind of my goals for the end of the year, and a little bit of a check-in on how we've gone so far this year. I wish I had a bit more stats for you, but I just haven't been keeping on top of my stats, but I'm feeling motivated for them again. My end of the year TBR is very much focus more towards romantasy slash fantasy. There's no romances on there. Most of the books on my physical TBR right now are romantasies and fantasies because I've just fallen behind on them, and I do find that when I buy romance books I tend to read them pretty quick, or I read them on KU and then I buy physical copies if I loved them, so they're not ever really on my TBR. Continuing to read romance and absorbing as much romance, whether it be in a fantasy setting or a contemporary setting, is kind of the overarching goal for this year. I want to really understand this genre really well and be able to give kind of broad information on this genre and recommendations, and just have a real understanding of what's going on in the romance sphere. I just really want to make sure I'm keeping up with all of that information, so all of this is kind of feeding into that bigger goal for the end of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you kind of took something interesting from it. Let me know some of your end of the year goals down below, how this year is going for you reading wise. I would genuinely love to hear it, and maybe I would even take some of these goals on for me for the end of the year as well. If you did enjoy this video and you would like to see more from me, then do please feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below and stay tuned for future content. I upload every single Wednesday and every single Sunday, so there is no shortage of bookish content here for you to enjoy. enjoying, and because I've just been chatting away for a little while now, I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, you're enjoying everything you are reading, and there are no reading slumps in your future, and I will see you for my next video. Bye guys.